The Power City weekly live stream is back, and this week I'm not only joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Just Ask Jesse, but I also have a special guest, another great founder on the Pulse Chain ecosystem, Mr. Fast Abdul and Mr. Just Ask Jesse in the house. If I can add these guys to the stage, quite the crew.
Hey guys, how goes it?
How y'all doing?
I am tired of talking about all the things I've been talking about, but let's do it one more time.
Quite the we've had a couple of weeks off, quite a couple of weeks in Pulse Chain, never a dull day, right?
Yeah, there's been unique problems we've encountered, and I'm ready for new problems.
Well, let's talk about a big problem that's been going on with the whole PDI incident, right? What are your guys' take on this?
Well, you know my take since day one, right? Before Pulse, day negative since before Pulse Chain went live. I've always taken the idea that, look, stable coins have to have real world value backing them. They have to, right? You have to bring in fiat to an exchange to make USDC. They mint it, right? And in the DeFi world, you have to have coins of value that get locked up so you can mint a stable coin, right? This is literally just how stable coins work. The ones that don't do that, that don't have all the backing, at least 1% or more, preferably way more, those are the ones that fail, right? When you copy a chain, all the tokens that come over, they're not actually redeemable back for real world value. It's not like, so for example, the USDC that's copied over the Pulse chain, you can't send that to Circle and think that they're going to give you $1 worth of fiat for it, because if they did that, they wouldn't have enough for the other people that made the legit USDC.
That actually provided backing and all those things. Yeah, you need a ceiling and you need a floor, or you don't have a stable coin.
Yeah, and if they did give you $1, like, that would just be stupid, first off. But then everybody would just make their own little fork of a blockchain and then just start sending all the USDC that they fork over and over to Circle and drain them really quickly, right? Yeah. And then they wouldn't have any real world value to give people. And in DeFi, it's very similar. So, like DAI over on Ethereum, that's backed by actual Ethereum. Okay, when you copy a blockchain and now you have a copy of Ethereum, which now becomes Pulse, and oh, by the way, you also inflate the supply by 10,000 some X. Okay, and then you have this copied over stablecoin. You can't, like, it's not real world value. You can't expect that you're going to get $1 worth of Ethereum, or in this case Pulse, for each single coin. And also the way the oracles read, they read each Pulse as one Ethereum. In fact, this is a good experiment for anybody who knows how to change their RPC settings. You can go into your RPC settings and under the coin name, just on Pulse Chain, just change it to ETH. ETH.
Yeah.
Right? On your wallet, on your MetaMask wallet, you'll be on Pulse Chain, and all the Pulse coins will not be called Pulse; they'll be called ETH.
And you'll feel rich, right?
You'll feel rich because you'll be like, "Wow, look at this! I have millions of ETH." Okay.
Indeed.
The blockchain gas coin, the native coin of any chain, is always recognized the same to the rest of the blockchain when you do a fork, right? Richard did a fork, and
that totally makes sense. Yeah, like they're all, they're all forks of Ethereum more or less.
Yeah, so he copied everything over, but then, oh, by the way, he inflated the supply a lot. Okay, yeah. And each one of those copied over DAI then said, well, each one of those coins is supposed to be worth, I don't know, 1,800 or whatever it was at the time of the fork. So that literally just puts everything out of whack. You could put in one single Pulse coin and mint yourself 1,800 DAI, right? Now now that's not quite the same technique people are doing now, because over time people are like, oh, look what I can do. Look what I can do. And you did have this DAI that's inflating and pulse chain throughout time. There were also liquidations and different things that were happening, but the supply is drastically inflating, all right, because people have found these little oracle loopholes, basically, where they can just create these things.
Yeah, which is different than arbitrage. Like there was a lot of arbitrage in the early days of like, advanced players finding hidden dexes. Oh, and I can buy some of these for cheap here and sell them here. But this is very different when you have like more of an exploit scenario. Maybe exploit's the wrong word, but where people are literally harvesting off the chain, right? Like it's
the code is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it is, except for the broken parts that aren't looking at the right thing, broken oracles and stuff, right? Like
right, which are kind of off-chain. Those are off-chain dependencies, but imagine like in the early days being able to put in one single pulse coin and like say mint 1,800 DAI. Okay, you'd be like, oh, cool, wow, I can't wait for this thing to go to $1. I just put in 1 million pulse, and it gave me 1,800 DAI for each one of those. I have millions and millions and millions of DAI now. I really, really want each one of these to go to $1 now.
Yeah, why not?
But it's just literally like not economically possible. Okay,
there's no magic money, right? Like
who's going to give? Somebody has to pay for that, right? Yeah. So is somebody going to bring in billions upon billions of dollars and just give them to you because you found that little loophole that nobody else was able to find, and say, oh, congratulations for finding this loophole. Here's millions upon millions of my hard-earned dollars because you found that little loophole. I'm just going to give them to you for free. Like, that's stupid. That's always been my stance since before the chain even went live. I stayed quiet on it for a long while. Every now and then I'd poke the bear with some guys like B Roots, but here we are today, and it's really unwinding now.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I was always okay with the meme coin narrative of these copied assets, like be it any copied thing, like and you have actual copied meme coins that have the exact same utility on Pulse Chain as they had on Ethereum, which is none. Like, that's great. If you want to buy a P Pepe, buy some P Pepe. All right, why not? But like, it's the tying them to financial products that they're not, and selling a story that these are going to do something that anybody reasonable knows they won't. And some people are literally buying into that, right? Like, they don't understand the details, and they bought into a story that I can buy something, for $1, I can get $1,000 worth of value that is guaranteed, right, by strangers on the internet. And, it's starting to verge on fraud as far as that goes. I don't think that should be thrown around necessarily, but, it is starting to feel like that, because I know some of these players understand.
It's definitely feeling like fraud, because realistically in crypto, the way these things work, unfortunately, it's just how it is. Crypto is super volatile. Money from a lot of people FOMO into something and go to a few people. Most people will lose. A few people will get rich. Okay? That's literally how speculative coins, memes, all sorts of things in crypto, that's how it works. That's how it works in traditional finance too, but it's way more exaggerated in crypto.
That's not how it works with stable coins, though.
Well, hold on. There is a difference, right? Okay. So before we get to stable coins, so people have to know that, right? If all these people FOMO money into any coin besides stable coins, any coin, there will always be early people or founders or people who find a hack or something, right? There's always going to be a smaller percentage, 5 or 10% of the people who run off with most of that money, leaving everybody else at a loss. That's how it always works. That since the early days of crypto. That's just how it works, okay? Here, though, you have people trying to pitch a narrative that the opposite is happening. Oh, everybody's going to get rich, and one guy's going to provide all the money for you, right? It literally just doesn't. Crypto, nothing, no speculative asset works like that. Hey, thousands and thousands of people, you're all going to be millionaires if you just believe in the 100 million steps it takes to get there. We're all going to be rich. It's not how things go. It's not realistic.
But here I'm having some cognitive dissonance that, of course, even before, when Jesse, you've outlined this on stream a long time before the exploit came to light, right? That this isn't backed. This could go very wrong. But let's explain to some people, or why are some people still believing in it after the exploits come to light? They're still providing liquidity. They're still calling it. They're still calling that the pegging is going to come. What's that about, in your opinion? They're just holding huge bags and they don't want to lose all their savings.
So for example, some people believe, and even showed some chain analysis that, like, for example, Sami, some people think he took a big loan over on Ethereum, bridged in some value, and then bought a ton of PDI. And then, oh, by the way, it went down a lot and his loan liquidated, right? So he's at a big loss. He lost a lot of money, and now he's desperate, right? Mm-hmm. So you do have guys that maybe that's true, maybe it's not. It's all hearsay, okay? And then you have guys that thought, hey, here's this coin. Maybe in the very beginning, they didn't know all these mechanics. They simply said, hey, maybe someday Maker will support this thing, which isn't really how it works. It's much more complex than that. But it was very simple to say, no, maybe someday this thing could be a stable coin. Who knows? Let me buy some. Let me buy it, scoop up a couple million of them. Right. And because they're holding a bag, they're looking at their wallet and they see, oh, I got 2 million of these PDI. Yeah, I also want them to go to $1. That would be great. Okay. So then they shill it. Some of those people are just simply going to lie because they want people to come in and buy their bags. But then there are the people who are clueless, who don't understand how any of this works, who believe those other people that are lying.
Oh, there's definitely true believers. And like I think it was a different protocol. Like, I know there was a similar shenanigans with the LUSD fork token on Pulse Chain, but that cleared itself up fairly quickly by being a giant rug. But with MakerDAO and the DAI protocol, these two things that are attached, it's so complicated that like very few people who are not actually devs, and even devs who've not looked at it for a long, long time, are going to be capable of understanding the nuances. But like people get into the nuts and bolts of that, of like all the details, they get absorbed into the details, and they forget the simple math of you're short $24 billion. No matter what is true, you're short $24 billion for your plan to work. And that's if the other details worked out. And I don't think there's going to be a great savior. I'm 100% confident it's not going to be Richard that's going to show up and fund this contract with $24 billion.
By the way, today, the total debt passed the debt ceiling.
What happens then?
It's never happened, right? I don't even know that they've ran that on a test net somewhere.
Yeah. And there's still how much liquidity is left? It must have been drained, right?
It's quite drained, but there's still a fair, relative to some things, there's a fair bit. Like it used to be millions and millions. I think
it was up around 100K or so in one of those pools.
I think we're talking $500,000 of things like paired to Pulse. Let me double check. Plus, there's multiple points of contact, right? Like it could be, paired to one thing here and then paired to another thing that's paired to Pulse, right? But the last Axis did a post last week that basically said, well, it was a combination of things. I think he said PWBTC as well as PDI, as well as like Atropa and Bear, like the various problem items paired to $500,000 total of Pulse. Let's look at just PDI. There's a big V2 pool, will be the biggest one. So I could be wrong. Okay, there's a V2 pool with total of $45,000 in liquidity, so that's $22.50 per side. And there, okay, the big one. Oh no, that's V3 on 9mm. That doesn't matter because it's probably just single-sided. 110K. That's nothing. V3, V1. Oh, it's getting down there on PDI itself. Yeah, very low liquidity. So sorry, you could have been right with the, 60 grand total liquidity or something like that. Very small number. Really, the danger is past, don't you think? Like this is little enough liquidity that how can it even affect things?
Well, yeah, the narrative's going to continue with those people though, because now the liquidity is so thin, it's going to pump like 50% in an hour, and then they're going to say, "Oh, look, it's up 50%. Look at my," and it took like $100 to pump it that much, right? It's going to be so volatile, but they're still going to play off of every little lie they can snatch up and try and put in somebody's ear.
Well, I know you don't want to say I told you so, Jesse, but I guess this is a kind of time where people should take heed, and obviously up to you, whatever you want to do. But talking about, bad stable coins, switching to good stable coins, we do have a newish stable coin, Fast Abdul, don't we, on Pulse Chain? How's INC doing? Oh,
$8, yeah, pretty good. It's pretty close to $1, which is like where I like to see stable coins. It's a little bit different system than the other liquidity forks in that the redemption doesn't start for the first 45 days instead of 14 days. But we still, at this second, we're at about 98 cents because people still have a reason to buy it off the market if it drops below $1 because they can pay off their loan at a discount. So it's been interesting to see that, like, yeah, if it drops down much below the $1 range, even though the redemption option is not in place that would push it back to $1, people buy it off the market to pay off their loan at a discount. So I think we have a very educated group of people on Pulse Chain in regards to liquidity forks, and they know how to play the game, and that's what we're seeing here.
That's interesting because that's an angle that after all these years that we've never discussed in great detail. There's so much game theory in this system, and literally we never talked about that. Oh, by the way, the redemptions are turned off for the first however many weeks. In your case, I think 45 days.
Yep.
And pay back your loan at a discount.
Yeah, I've been telling people it's like the bank sent you a coupon for 5% off your loan, right? Like, do you want to use the coupon, right? Like, why would you not?
And that translates on the other side to 5%, 10% free coins that they got, just for free now, sitting in the stability pool or wherever they got them.
Yep, and they could literally arbitrage that if there was enough there without slipping it back up to $1 to pay off their entire vault. Like, they could arbitrage that, take it out, and like literally cash in the difference on the spot. Like, it is. Yeah. You still need that redemption mechanism long term, but I've been happy to see that, like, for starting things out, let it start with less pressure, let people build more momentum with it. It seems to work fine without that redemption mechanism. Long term, though, I know it's required. Like, you don't mess with a liquidity fork as far as actually taking something like that out. This code's too proven. So small tweaks like this, sure, but I'm confident in the overall.
Redemptions are necessary. People need to understand that, right? So the difference between a regular coin that's not called a stable coin and a stable coin is one is always redeemable for $1 and the other's not, right? So in the case of this new INC, that's redeemable for $1 worth of INC. After the first 45 days. So that's
with the paying off your vault, it's still redeemable for $1 to the people who have vaults, effectively.
Correct. Yeah. And that mechanism right there is what guarantees that a stable coin is always going to stay $1. Because when it's cheap, and people never understand this. I wish people. It's very simple. On a DEX, coins fluctuate in value because it's just ratios, and the DEX doesn't know what's supposed to be a stable coin and what's not. So even stable coins go up and down.
Totally.
But stable coins will always bounce back, to $1. And the only reason they're bouncing back is because the community is buying them back to $1, because they're getting them at a discount because they know they can either pay back their loan
Or
at
get
a
$1
discount,
somewhere else. Yeah.
or they can get $1 worth of something somewhere else. That is literally the mechanism that we can call the peg. That right there is the peg. And any other coin that doesn't have that mechanism does not have a peg.
And we can see that on Flex with, at the moment, 99.999. We can see that with Earn as well, 99.5, and 98 with InkD. So liquidity forks work, right? Surprise, surprise. When you have a good mechanism, it works.
And it's been tested so many times. Like, to my knowledge, I haven't checked lately, but I believe Ink Printer was the 39th liquidity fork that I know of, right? And of course, we have 3 others on the Pulse chain right now that came before. So, and the Pulse chain is kicking ass on liquidity forks. I think the numbers, when you look at the TVL and liquidity forks, I think Liquid Loans is the highest of any of them, and Earn and Flex are on the chart. Ink Dollar is probably a little below, but we'll get there.
Well, I mean, you're what, 2 weeks old now, and I've also seen, I'd like to share this tweet that you put out recently. There's some updates coming, right? Some new ways to for people to yield. Let's talk about this.
This is the plan. Okay, here I can do it off the cuff here. So I got thinking about the concept of, like, with any of these liquidity forks, there are a lot of protocols that just have a reward token. There's a tendency for the reward token to get sold, right? Because it is your reward for completing an action that the protocol wants you to do. In this case, like minting an Ink Dollar, staking an Ink Dollar, adding liquidity for Ink Dollars, right? The main functions of a liquidity contract. Now, the print token, just like Earn and Flex and the loan token, like, they are utility tokens in that there is something you can do with them. You can stake them inside the protocol, which allows you to earn Ink Dollars when they're minted, as well as Ink, like Richard Hart's Ink token, when Ink Dollars are redeemed via the protocol, right? So, like, there's utility there, but some people are going to stake them and some people are still going to sell them, and that can be hard on the chart. So, and as they get sold down, the APRs on the protocol go down. Like, and they're still pretty decent when you think about it. Like, right now, my screen's showing 18% APR for single-sided staking of a stable coin. Like, that is still extremely good for a stable coin with, no impermanent loss. But if you could get those APRs to stay at that level or even increase from that level, a lot more people would be incentivized to use the protocol. And the APR is all about the price of, in this case, the print token, right? So the same as Earn, Flex, loan token, in other liquidity forks. So with that concept in mind, we came up with some concepts like, okay, what if, and this is the most complicated one I'll go over first. What if you could have a liquid staked print token, right? Just like Rocket Pool or something on Ethereum, except for with the print token. So you'd be able to stake your print token and get we'll call it an S print token, staked print token, as a second token that you would get in return for staking that. It would be in a different contract than people are currently staking in. And then you'd be able to pair those two things up in a liquidity pool, and it'd be a no impermanent loss liquidity pool, because you'd always be able to redeem one S print token, one staked print token, for one print token. So it'd just be like literally a liquid staking apparatus. But the important part is what happens to that print token when you deposit it into the liquid staking print contract would be that it would earn Ink Dollars, and it would earn Ink, and then it would use that to buy up more print tokens and put it back into the contract and burn it, right? So you'd have the print token itself wouldn't get burned, but it would get locked in a contract that would keep it staked in the Ink Printer protocol and continuously buy more and burn and put more in and burn the receipt so nobody could ever take it out, until it ended up being the biggest holder of print, the biggest staker of print, and it would continuously feed off that liquidity pool even if nobody else was buying it. It could change the trajectory of the token. So that's the first part of the idea, and probably the most complicated. So I'm working on making a flow chart, because not everybody's going to get that on first pass. But then the next concept is to go over some things that people have done on the Pulse chain. Like tax tokens have been very popular on the Pulse chain. They've done better here than they have on most other chains. And I think with that concept, I was like, okay, what if there was a tax token? I won't give it a name right now because I want people to try to front run it. But let's say this tax token rewarded you in ink for holding it. And when it got bought, sold, transferred, it would buy print and put it into the staked print contract and increase that pool bigger and bigger and bigger, taking it off the market so nobody could ever buy it or sell it, and increasing the staked print that was earning ink dollars and ink to buy more print and put it back into that contract. So you could make the loop bigger. You could give the, give it more engines, right, than any other tax token or anything like that has ever had, because you'd actually have this ink printer protocol engine pushing it forward continuously, as well as this tax token that people would want to hold because they could get ink for just having it in their wallet, Richard Hart's ink. So like, okay, those ideas work. But then the third part comes in, which I think is going to totally blow it up. And I've already arranged this with the guys from Hocus Pocus, I've worked on things like this with them before, for Randy Hilarski from No Permissions. He launched a farm that's it's a MasterChef fork, right? It feeds out his custom token, which is called the DAP token. And I was like, okay. So, and MasterChef is the same contract that PulseX uses, that 9inch uses. It's the same as the PulseX farms exactly. But I had the idea of, what if the free token people get as a reward for farming was a tax token that did this thing? So they'll receive this special token that rewards them with ink for holding it. So they have a reason to hold a reward token. And if they do decide to sell it, it will buy print and lock it in the contract, right? So encouraging them to provide more liquidity. And so we're making a whole custom farm scenario where there'll be 10 or more farms where people will actually be able to go and farm with print tokens, farm with ink dollars, and then other assets against them. And then they'll receive this special token that rewards them with ink for just having it in the wallet. And if they decide they don't want it, they can sell it, and it's locking up print forever, which will result in more print getting bought up and locked up forever. So sorry, Matt, I know that was an intense loop there.
I find it really interesting because honestly, these liquidity forks, you've got this reward token that emits out. And there's only two things you could do with it.
Yep.
Three. You could hold it and do nothing with it. But the two things that people are going to do is they're going to sell it or they're going to go stake it. Now, while people are taking loans, which is primarily when the collateral is going up in value or is very expensive, and we don't see that with Pulse right now. Pulse is going down a lot, right? When people have a lot of value worth of Pulse sitting in their wallet, they're more inclined to take loans. Same with Ink, same with Hex, and same with PulseX. So when the chain goes up, that staking pool gets quite a bit juicier because that's when everyone's going to be taking the loans. But in the meanwhile, people are earning these things from sitting in the stability pool. And they're like, well, I can go stake it and occasionally collect, some of the collateral token or some of the redemption fee. But that's few and far between. So I'm just going to dump it right now until later on, right? And people dump them, and the chart goes down a lot. Doesn't mean it's going to go down a lot forever, but it's going down for now. And we think until Pulse Chain goes back up. When Pulse Chain starts going up, we think these things will go up. Now, what you're suggesting is interesting because it gives, a third option. It gives, and remember also the stability pool emits at a reducing rate.
Yeah, it's paying out the most right now, but with the least reward attached to it to stake it because that's going to come later, right?
So I wonder with your mechanism, how that's going to play out, being, if let's say, explain the part about the liquid staking mechanism where you have one for one with like an S print.
You bet. So like you would put it into the contract and it would just be another tab on the screen. So you could stake your print for yourself, or you could put it into the S print contract, which would give you an S print back in your wallet. And then there'll be a pool likely on the Fux exchange that likely would be a farm on to Fux, pending approval from the Fux team, where you'd have S print versus print, and you know that they're 1-for-1 value. You can always exchange one for the other. It would probably be weighted in favor of S print, like 80 or 90% S print. So people would be encouraged to do more of that against 10 or 20% print. And then so of course there'd be some fees in that pool. It might be set at 1% or something like that as the values went up and down, and they would a little bit. But the real thing is it would be an incentivized farm, so they'd be getting likely Fux and 2Fux for just participating. So the S print that they put in there is actually staked inside the protocol, right? And it is buying more print. It actually, I like to say print because it's easier for people to understand, but it's actually buying S print and burning it is what it's doing. So it's taking print off the market permanently.
So right there, I wonder if we'd ever see a time where it's burning more than the emission to the stability depositors.
Almost certainly eventually you would. It would depend on, like, when you look at the mechanisms of print and what causes print to pay, it requires people to either be redeeming, right, or to be minting. So if there was a time where, like, let's say we'll put it a year down the road, so we know that the print emissions from the stability pool is more than halved, right? So
right.
But if a year from now, like, Pulse Chain is booming and ink is worth $300, right? People are going to be taking loans like crazy. So the print token is going to be taking in a ton of the revenue, more revenue than the stability pool is taking in, because it's doing liquidations as well as just a drip of the print token, right? So likely at that time where everything was booming, the print token would be paying more than the stability pool.
So basically what you're creating, I really like the narrative, because you've got a coin that you could argue is inflationary, even though they're already minted and they're sitting in a pool.
Set quantity, but
more comes out. For purposes, it's inflationary, right? And when people ask you, hey, is it inflationary? You could almost say, well, it's dynamic. Over time, it's actually disinflationary because we created this other thing.
Yep.
And eventually you might see a time where it's deflationary.
At least in terms of what's available in the market, should be deflationary. Like, I would predict that the staked print contract, which gets, essentially the keys get burned, as far as, like, nobody can get it out once it's burned by either the tax token or by the protocol buying it off the market itself. People can, of course, get it out. If they put it in themselves, they can take it out. But
available supply. The coins always will exist, right? But
they exist, but most of them will be burned. The receipts to take them out will be burned. So they'll be permanently locked in this contract. And what if that gets to, of the available tokens 1 year from now, what if 80% of them were in the contract and not available on the market? And then that was take 80% of all the revenue that went to print stakers, went to the S print contract, that then bought print, like, continuously. It would be by far the biggest buyer of print. It might be a scenario where people might even be in a setup where, like, they could sell continuously and it wouldn't matter, because they'd never be able to keep up with the S print that was buying it as they sold it, right?
What an interesting concept. That could be applied to all the liquidity forks, by the way.
I was thinking that as well. If it works on one, there's no reason it wouldn't work on the others. Like, Earn and Flex have they have the exact same tokenomics, actually, as Ink Printer does. Liquid Loans has a lot more tokens, but that doesn't really change the math of the situation. I think the proportions are the same, right? Like 32% was locked in the stability pool.
Yeah, it's always liquidity things always tend to go in these thirds,
Yeah. So I don't see why not. And if it did, like, this would add to a narrative I'd like to see of the Pulse chain not being the copy chain. Instead, let's be the stablecoin chain.
And like you said, Jesse, it gives people options, right? Rather than just dumping the token, right? And then
Yeah.
maybe that, well, it might go up, it might not. So I'll just dump it. You've got other places to put it and earn yield. And the more options in DeFi, the better, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got Ink, Printer, Flex, Protocol, Earn, Liquid Loans. So all the blue chips, the RH blue chips are covered now. There's definitely, no one can say there's not real DeFi on Pulse Chain, but it's been a rocky road so far. What are you guys thinking? How do you guys think about crypto so far in 2025, where it's going and how that's going to relate to Pulse Chain too?
I don't know. So the Trumps bought ETH at the top, right?
Mm.
And they told the world, "Oh, I think
great entry."
Trump's son said, "Hey, now's a good time, and then you can thank me later," or something like that, right? And ETH only went down a whole lot. And then what did Richard do? Richard bought the ETH top, right? You got all these rich guys with billions of dollars that all bought the top. So the only thing that's worrying me about the cycle is if the big giant money's already bought, who's going to pump it? All the taxpayers? Like all the small guys, the small fries? Like, where do we go from here? I don't know.
I feel like there could be more money out there. Like I get what you mean. Like the president of the United States launched a meme coin. If that's not a top signal, I don't know what one is, right? But that being said, like we know there's some real developments coming for ETH. Like their next, I think their next big update enables them to have some silly amount of ETH in one validator. Like it's like 1,600 or something like that versus the 32, and that's made to work alongside staked ETH ETFs and things like that. So I think it won't be like necessarily retail investors, but institutional investors that could be the next ones to come into the market to pump the price of ETH, which seems artificially low to me. And that could be the third wave of this, of this season.
And then hopefully
we can only hope. And oh, by the way, people, you may not want to hear it, but like, just because ETH pumps doesn't mean Richard is going to come buy our bags. I have a firm stance that I think we all need to either be building cool things like this, or telling people about the cool things that are built on Pulse Chain and try to get new people in. So we're not just all trading money back and forth across each other.
Yeah, we need to get out of the echo chamber. And part of that is going to be changing the narrative, I think. Like, we can't be I don't want to be on the exploited P copy chain. Like let's start being positive and pushing a different narrative. And that's something I'm personally going to set my sights on in the coming weeks of like, okay, I'm not going to talk about those things anymore. I'm going to talk about cool things that are good, things I'm building, things other people are building, and like the core tokens that brought us here in the first place. So I think it is possible.
There's a lot of cool stuff out there, and this community has stepped up a lot. So look, we don't have Rabby Wallet, it's out, right? They don't want anything to do with Pulse Chain right now. It really sucks because it was a great wallet. Look, there's nothing we can do. All right, they won't even talk to anybody from Pulse Chain. But however, we have Internet Money Wallet. It works on desktop. It works on mobile. There's some nuances there, right? You can use hardware wallet on one. You can't use a hardware wallet on the other yet. You've got other options too. You've got Pulse Wallet. Okay. Mm-hmm. They've told me today that they have hardware wallet capability coming this month. It's on their priority list for this month. And they're stepping up their game to try and do some enhancements because they see that, look, like now's the prime time. If you have a wallet, you gotta start shining right now, right? So we literally have multiple wallets specific to Pulse Chain, either built by people for Pulse Chain or built by people in Pulse Chain for Pulse Chain, right?
Yep.
And we've got Fatty.io, which is an alternative to DBank. We
And
got
that's
all these things.
I think that's the biggest loss of Rabby is actually not the wallet itself so much as DBank. A lot of people are using that for marketing for all kinds of things because you could get that, like you could see your liquidity and everything. If Fatty.io by the Fux team can replace that, we don't need DBank.
Yeah, yeah. And look, all these things are not perfect yet. All these wallets, they're not going to have all the exact features that you used to have. But look, we're still. I tend to think Pulse Chain is still in its infancy, even though we've been here. It feels like a couple of years now. These things will evolve and grow and get better. Our own products are going to evolve and grow and get better. You see what Fastnet Duel's talking about doing with his Ink Dollar protocol. Make some enhancements and some side protocols to attach to it. And I do think as founders, we all need to be talking to each other. Look, he built a thing that's like pretty much a copy of Earn and Flex, but it's for a different coin. We're not fighting.
No.
In fact, we communicated before, during, and after that build because we got to have lots of stuff built on chain, and there are
more stables are better, right? And one of my goals is to actually pair up all these stables. Like I want to have a farm on Fux and 2Fux where you have the Ink Dollar, you have PXDC, HexDC, and USDL as well paired together, so all these liquidity forks can basically support each other in keeping each other at $1, and that should actually work in my opinion.
Yeah. We don't need to look at each other as like competitors, so to speak. Like the fiat products, the internet money stuff. You've got the vouch protocol. You got tons. You got tons of stuff on chain that are not even direct competitors to each other, but they're all useful, right?
Yep.
I think that we all need to be talking and sharing ideas, not giving away trade secrets or anything like, but I think somewhere along the line, we've seen some of the community from maybe the meme side or maybe even the PDI side that take the stance of everybody needs to be fighting with everybody, right? If you're not on our side, you're the enemy, right? And that just tears that'll tear a family apart. It'll tear a friendship apart, and it'll tear a blockchain community apart.
Well, we've seen it.
So
And I think
we kind of all need to stick together. And, we need to stick together and fight the good fight.
Yep. I think if there's one thing to take away from this stream is more positivity, like both of you said, stick together and actually go with the positive narrative for Pulse Chain and look at all the cool stuff, because there's a lot of cool stuff on Pulse Chain. And the people that want to fight and go mad and whatever, let them do it.
Positive and honest.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of parroting of lies out there, or even little phrases that don't make any sense at all. Gotta stop.
People need to have some discernment, right? You need to be like, there's positivity, and then there's just ludicrous stuff like a stable coin that has no backing. Someone's going to come in and bring in billions of dollars for you because you hold millions of them and what's not. So people need to have the discernment, and it's what's human nature. Human nature is to do nothing or next to nothing and try and get as much as possible. And people exploit that in crypto because they tell you can come and buy this whatever coin X or whatever for this amount, and then you can 1,000x, 1,000,000x it, and what's not. So of course you have some discernment, but yeah, you're right, Jesse. Positivity with honesty, right? Anything else you guys want to touch on before we wrap this up?
I think we covered all the juicy parts. Should be good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. It's good to see Fast Abdul on here and Ink Printers doing well. Another great protocol on Pulse Chain. So let's all just keep building. Let's keep it more kumbaya and less negativity, right?
Agreed. Deal.
Yes, guys. Thanks for coming on, and we'll catch you soon.
You bet.
Thanks, guys, for watching. And for any of the live PowerCity dApps, you can find the correct links below in the description box. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.